This conference will now be recorded.
The caucus meeting of December 20th, 2022 will now come to order at 7:46 p.m. Present are Council President Broussard, Council Members Glassburn, Heeman, Kelly, Lippert, and Scarl and Williamson. Also present is the Mayor, Law Director, Finance Director, Economic Director, Safety Director, Service Director, Recreation Director, Special Assistant to the Mayor, and guests. If there are no additions or corrections, the caucus meeting minutes of December 6th, 2022 are approved as written. And under being requested of suspension this evening, there are 4 items. The first is ordinance 2022-122, which is on second reading. Mayor Jones, would you like to speak to this one?
Mr. President, the Finance Director can speak to the 2 ordinances on second reading, the budget and the transfer appropriations.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. President, 2022-122 is the temporary appropriations for 2023, which we need in place before January 1, so we can be ready to do the things we need to do for our government. And 2022-123 is the last transfer ordinance of the year for the 2022 appropriations, and that also needs to be passed before the end of the year.
Great, thank you. Any objections from council to suspension on either 122 or 123? All right, seeing none, moving on. Also being requested for suspension is resolution 2022-125, which is on first reading. Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. President. Council approved applying for a grant to install security cameras at the Recreation Center, Senior Center, and Springvale Ballroom in 2021. That legislation was 2021-83. The grant was awarded in total for $50,000. And in 2001, the expected cost for the cameras was approximately $70,000. This year, during discussions around the 2022 budget in March, Council approved $70,000 for these cameras in the budget. The money needs to be encumbered before the end of this year, or we will need to add this to the 2023 budget. In order for to ensure that our city was getting the best use out of these cameras, it took some time to coordinate with the police department to ensure the proper cameras and equipment were being purchased so that that new equipment would be able to work with what our police department currently uses. So after ensuring that we knew the correct equipment, then we needed to locate a vendor to purchase the equipment through. This legislation before you will allow us to use a cooperative purchasing program to purchase and install the cameras at a cost not to exceed $115,000. I know Director Pinchek has more detailed information on that he can share with you. We believe the cost is currently between $106,000 and $109,000. But due to rising costs and the specific equipment needed, the administration is requesting suspension on this legislation to allow us to purchase the cameras so we can encumber the money in the 2022 budget and to lock in the current rate.
Thank you. Director Pinchek, any additional comments?
Thank you, Council President. Thank you, Mayor. If I could just go into further detail, this company, Southeast Security, being on the cooperative purchasing agreement, allowing us to purchase and also install the equipment without going to bid, was firmly vetted by our staff, which included our Public Works Department, our Police Department, as well as myself, walking through each facility, looking at camera placement, as well as where where the installation of the wires would be, how this would interface with the main server, and allowing our police department to have access to all our cameras at one time in their facility. So this is a long time coming. We do have to spend that money and have the cameras installed by March. Otherwise, we lose the $50,000 grant. And this is part of that process.
Thank you, Director and Mayor. Are there any objections from council to suspension on Resolution 2022-125? All right, seeing none. By the way, let the record reflect that Councilwoman Gilchrist is also present, as well as HR Director Kidd. Last being requested for suspension is Ordinance 2022-126, which is on first reading. And on behalf of myself and all of council, we'd like to pass this adopting ordinance to update the code book to conform with current state law and those of the city of North Olmsted. This codification process is done twice a year, every year. Are there any comments from council? Any objections from council to
Mr.
suspension?
President,
Mr. Lemper.
Mr. President, just a note, a reminder that they always suspend this because they want to make sure all of the ordinances for the year are incorporated into the code.
Correct. All right, so I'm going to assume there's no objections to suspension from any members of council. All right, seeing none. Moving on to assigning legislation, Ordinance 2022-106 will be assigned to Public Safety, Health, and Welfare, which leads us into scheduling committee meetings for Tuesday, January 3rd, 2023. Councilwoman Williamson, would you like to schedule a Public Safety, Health, and Welfare Committee meeting?
Yes, and will that be our only meeting then, that evening, that we can foresee right now?
As far as I can tell, yes.
Okay, then I'll just go ahead and set it for 7:30, if that's okay with
Okay.
everyone. Okay, thank you. Mr. Mastrollo has his hand.
Chuck?
We might have a request for an intergov to reappoint some positions that for their terms that are currently expiring to some of the boards and commissions that are mayor appointments. We may ask for that as well on that day, but I don't think that would take too long. We'll have that information probably by the end of this week, beginning of next week, to send to the intergov committee chair.
Okay, thank you. So we can always slot that one either before public safety or right after, once we get that additional information. Does anyone on council have anything else they wish to bring up this evening? Anything from the administration?
Hey, Mr. Broussard, if Mr. Upton's on, I believe you wanted to schedule a BZD meeting in the future. Is that correct?
That is correct. The BZD will need to meet to review the EQ Basin project that received favorable recommendation from Planning Commission. Should not take more than 5 or 10 minutes.
Already shooting.
Is there any urgency in this? I was going to schedule it for the 10th, so I know we have a meeting in between then, but would that be an issue to have it on the January 10th?
No issue.
That'd be fine. Okay.
Yes.
So, Mr. Broussard, I mean, if you don't mind, can I schedule that now?
Go right ahead.
Okay. We'll schedule the building zone development for January 10th at 7 o'clock to discuss the EQ Basin approvals. And I would ask, I guess we'll set it up for just 5 minutes and see where we go from there. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Seeing nothing else from council or the administration, this caucus meeting of December 20th, 2022 is adjourned at 7:55 p.m.
This conference will now be recorded.
The council meeting of December 20th, 2022 will now please come to order at 8 o'clock p.m. Just a note for those of you who wish to address council tonight via this virtual format, council is asking that you please use the chat feature now to let Clerk Taylor know that you have a comment, and you will be called on during the comment portion of the meeting. And if you are calling on a phone or do not have access to the chat feature, we will give instructions during the public comment portion of our meeting to provide the opportunity for you to speak. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Broussard,
Present.
Ms. Gilchrist.
Here.
Mr. Glassburn,
Here.
Ms. Heeman,
Here.
Mr. Kelly,
Here.
Mr. Limpert,
Present.
Mr. Scarl,
Present.
Ms.
Present.
Williamson.
Here.
Thank you. If there are no additions or corrections, the council meeting and public hearing meeting minutes of December 6th, 2022 are approved as written. The following legislation is being considered for suspension of the rules this evening. On second reading, ordinance 2022-122, as well as ordinance 2022-123. And on first reading, resolution 2022-125 and ordinance 2022-126. I'd like to take a moment right now to personally thank Councilman Kelly for his service to the city of North Olmsted. As most of you know, he will be moving on to the Cuyahoga County Council, and we wish him well in his new role. And we also ask that he not forget about us in his new role. Moving into reports. Mayor Daley Jones, you have a report this evening.
Yes, I do, Mr. President. Thank you. Good evening. As we are now just 5 days away from the Christmas holiday, I'll begin this evening's report with a feel-good piece of information for council. Our employees here at the city adopted 3 families in need for the holidays this year, and our employees exhibited incredible generosity for this first-time effort. $3,500 was raised, and we collected cash donations at the employee brunch that was held on December 7th at Springvale Ballroom. Gifts and gift cards for groceries and gasoline were dropped off last Thursday, December 15th, for all 3 families to give them a Christmas that they will remember. So I'd like to publicly thank our employees for their incredible generosity. Winter preparedness. In 3 words, we are ready. As you know, a major winter storm is forecasted for this holiday weekend. Our North Olmsted Service Department has 25 employees, a total of 23 vehicles, 6,500 gallons of liquid de-icer, and currently 1,800 tons of salt in our salt dome ready for use. Request has been made for an additional 500 tons of salt. Our team replenishes as needed to keep our roads safe and clear. We also have 6 mechanics on staff and 10 wastewater treatment plant employees who can assist with snow removal in North Olmsted. Contingency plans are in place to make sure that our residents are kept safe and our roads are kept clear. They do a great job. Also, a reminder, in observance of the holiday season, Republic Services trash collection will be delayed 1 day during each of the following periods: December 29th to December 30th and January 5th, 2023 to January 6th. Please be advised in the event that you receive calls from our residents that there are those 2 delays. I was privileged to swear in our newest police officer, Alex Johnson, yesterday afternoon. His swearing in will be repeated in front of City Council in early January to allow his family and friends to be present and celebrate this occasion. The Arts Commission Holiday Home Decorating Contest winners. 5 winners were selected by the North Olmsted Arts Commission in their annual Holiday Home Decorating Contest. The winners are as follows. The overall best display is at 25018 Mitchell Drive. The traditional display is at 5991 Lewis Drive. The most festive display is at 26587 Butternut Ridge Road. The best Griswold display is at 29247 Lorraine Road. And the best outdoor tree display is at 4647 Azalea Lane. These addresses are also on the city website if you would like to do a driving tour of the winning homes in this festive contest. Registration is currently in process for several programs at our Recreation Center for the Winter 1 session, including Learn to Swim, Learn to Skate, Spring Cheer Clinic, Nerf Battle, Indoor Boat Race, Spring Flag Football, Lacrosse, and the Spring Volleyball League. And some sad news to share with City Council this evening. In case you have not been made aware, the home of North Olmsted High School principal Zach Weegley was destroyed by fire on Saturday afternoon, December 17th. Fortunately, no one in the family was injured as they were not home at the time. However, they unfortunately lost their dog and everything else. In the conversations I've had with Superintendent Brand, I'm told that the school district is going to do a gift card drive to benefit the family who lives in the community of LaGrange. 2 fundraisers are already planned there. We will follow the lead of the school district once more details are shared with us. His family has 4 children under the age of 11, and the fire remains under investigation. And finally, this evening, council members, the funeral services were held at St. Richard Catholic Church last Saturday, December 17th, for former North Olmsted Mayor Ed Boyle, who held the position of mayor from 1990 through 1997. As mayor, I shared a proclamation with his family members and asked that you keep them in your thoughts during their time of sadness. And we also sincerely thank Mayor Boyle for his love of and service to North Olmsted. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mayor. Director of Law Garreau, do you have a report this evening?
Thank you, Council President. No report this evening, but I did want to mirror the comments and best wishes for success to Councilman Kelly and his new position. Also wanted to extend to you all my best wishes for a happy holiday season, a Merry Christmas, and a safe start to 2023 to all of you, the administration, and to the folks listening at home in the community. So hope 2023 kicks off well and everybody is healthy and safe. So that's all. Thanks, and that's it.
Thank you, Director. Director of Finance Kopfer, do you have a report this evening?
Yes, I do, Mr. President. On Monday, the October month-end summary and detailed financial reports were sent to council, the administration, and other interested parties. They are obviously, we talked about a lot of what was in those as we went through budget discussions. So hopefully we're back on track with those. And Councilman Kelly, I wish you the best of luck. And being the finance director of this fine city, I'm hoping you don't forget us as our council representative. And I most importantly want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Moving into council committee reports, Councilwoman Williamson, Chairwoman of the Public Safety, Health and Welfare Committee. Do you have a report this evening?
I do not, Mr. President, but I'd like to take a moment of personal privilege, if I may.
Certainly.
Thank you. I just wanted to congratulate Mr. Kelly once again on his win for County Council. It's been a pleasure working with you in your capacity here in the last 3 years, and I look forward to working with you in the future. And I think each and every one of us has his cell phone number. So I know that for a fact we can get in touch with you at all hours of the night, right? I'm kidding. I'm kidding. But best of luck to you and happy holidays to everyone else. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Limpert, Chairman of the Building, Zoning, and Development Committee. Do you have a report this evening?
No report this evening, Mr. President, but if I could have a moment of personal privilege as well.
Please.
I'd like to congratulate Mr. Kelly. It's been good working with you over the last 3 years. I've always respected your willingness to communicate and collaborate honestly, and even when we didn't see eye to eye, we always had respect for each other, and I appreciate that very much. I also want to just give a recognition and my sympathies to the Boyle family on behalf of myself and my father, worked closely with him while he was mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Heeman, Chairwoman of the Recreation, Public Parks, and Buildings Committee. Do you have a report this evening?
I do not, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you. Back to Councilman Limpert, Vice Chairman of the Finance Committee. Do you have a report? Unless Councilman Glassburn has the report. Who has the report?
Mr. Glassburn, I think you've got this.
Thank you.
I believe so, Mr. President. My condolences to all who have to listen to 3 reports from me. If at any time my connection is impaired, Mr. Limpert has my notes as well. The first time Finance met was on December 10th of 2022, starting at 8:05 p.m. For our first budget hearing. Present were, committee members Glassburn, Limpert, and Williamson, as well as council members Heeman and Scarl, the mayor, the law director, finance director, HR director, safety director, recreation director, special assistant to the mayor, and guests. As I mentioned, the budget, which is 2022-122, was the main topic. And this budget has a projected revenue and spend of approximately $31.2 million. There are some ARPA funds included within the budget. On revenue, our 2021 revenue have exceeded expectations, most uniquely in the income tax net withholdings. Therefore, Director Kopfer is projecting a 15% decline in the income tax collections versus 2022 for our next year in 2023. Property tax collections will be flat with the exception of a decrease due to the expiration of our paid off fire station levy of 0.4 mils. Revenue projections will be revisited in January for the permanent budget. On expenses for the budget, presentations were made for the Office of Mayor, HR, Recreation, Springvale, Senior Center, Youth Services, Oxcart Pantry, Mayor's Court, Finance, Law, Council, Safety, Fire, Police, Dispatch, and Building. Some of the notable items included some personnel changes. Our city engineer and building commissioner services will be changed. Dispatch will gain a supervisor and an IT professional. Fire will gain 3 EMS/firefighters. Police, service, and wastewater will retain the changes made during 2022. HR is budgeting for a 16% increase in our healthcare costs. This will result in approximately a $30 a month increase for employees. Recreation will expand its programming and maintenance funding, and have more notes on them later. Springvale will replace its parking lot and finish interior remodeling. Fire staffing increases are intended to increase the ability of the city to run 3 crews at a time instead of the 2 crews that we typically have available right now. Police will include new equipment and vehicle replacements. New IT professional and dispatch should lead to a police detective being redeployed back to the department. Dispatch's 2 personnel increases will increase the number of dispatchers by 1 FTE. This will mitigate some of the overtime costs, but double the normal overtime utilization remains budgeted for 2023. Finance, it has approximately $180,000 of new software, travel, training, and new personnel time management systems. as a new item, and the debts associated with the purchase of Spruce Forest and the future land acquisition costs from the school district are being paid off within the budget for the purchase that was made this year. Council remains concerned with planning for future expenses, including the recreation center, pool, land acquisition, capital repair and replacement, computer and IT capital costs, and inflationary costs. And that committee meeting ended at 2:30 p.m. Okay, you all survived the longest one. Move on to the next report. Finance met again on December 13th, 2022 in the caucus room, starting at 7 p.m. and ending at 9:04 p.m. Present for that meeting were President Broussard and committee members Glassburn and Limpert, as well as council members Gilchrist, Heeman, and Scarl. Mayor, Finance Director, Economic Director, Service Director, Special Assistant to the Mayor, our IT Director, and our Assistant Finance Director. There were 4 items on the agenda for that evening: 2022-123, the transfer amendment. Final transfer amendment of the year included the final 2022 budgetary items, including fuel costs for police, football helmets for recreation, and final borrowing costs. That was recommended by committee 2-0 with suspension. Next was the 2022-124 Master Plans Examiner proposal. This would allow the city to hire the plans examiner within house if that is what is the most advantageous structure to the city at that time. That was also recommended 2-0. When the budget hearing resumed for 2022-122, we heard presentations from the service department, building maintenance, streets, forestry, storm, fleet, wastewater treatment plant, economic development, engineering, and IT again, and some others. Notable items included that streets has upcoming large projects, including Clegg Road north of Lorraine and Lorraine Road itself. Clegg is scheduled to occur with some major sewer infrastructure replacements. Our fleet department is still awaiting some of last year's major purchases. The wastewater treatment plant rate will increase by 2%, and it is continuing on with its rotating 5-year management plan. The large South Interceptor retention project is outside the budget scope at this time. For economic development, some items included the Great Northern Bridge rehabilitation, demolition of the former school sites, and the new city master plan. Engineering is also being restructured to improve service and reduce costs. IT also provided additional information to council regarding its software and service, long-term plans, as well as capital costs into the future. And council discussed potential amendments and decided that an additional meeting would be necessary to further refine those. And again, that meeting ended at 9:04 p.m. And lastly, Finance met virtually on December 15th from 8:32 to 9:35 p.m. Present were committee members Glassburn, Limpert, and Williamson, as well as council members Broussard, Gilchrist, Heeman, Kelly, and Scarl, the Finance Director, Economic Director, Service Director, Recreation Director, Special Assistant to Mayor, Assistant Finance Director, and guests. Our final time on 2022-122 for the budget was involved. There was continued discussion on the Finance Department time and personnel management programs, street lighting expansions, dispatch overtime costs, Clegg Road, parks, playground equipment, Barton Bradley safety improvements, city council chambers, and long-term budgeting priorities. Council sought to amend the budget at this time to accept technical corrections and allocate an additional $80,000 for street lighting and $50,000 for Clegg Road Park playground equipment. Council will look to add an additional money for the police e-bike, second police e-bike, modernization of council chambers, improve Barton Bradley safety, and much more in the permanent budget as necessary. And as I mentioned, that meeting ended at 9:35 p.m. And so at this time, I will move to amend the 2022-122 budget with the technical corrections as well as the council amendments and ask for a second.
Second.
Motion to amend ordinance 2022-122 made by Councilman Glassburn, seconded by Councilman Limpert. Roll call, please.
Ms. Copper, it looks like Miss Taylor dropped. Oh, there she is. Okay. You're muted.
You're muted. There we go.
Mr. Glassburn,
Yes.
Mr. Lippert,
Yes.
Ms. Gilchrist,
Yes.
Ms. Williamson,
Yes.
Mr. Scarl,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly, Mr. Kelly, I didn't hear you. Perfect, thank you. Ms. Heeman,
Yes.
Motion to amend ordinance 2022-122 passes by a vote of 7-0.
And that concludes all of my reports. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Councilman Kelly, Chairman of the Streets and Transportation Committee, do you have a report this evening?
we can't hear you.
All right. Well,
I read the lips that said no report, Mr. President.
right. As
One
well
of
as
my night
the
classes.
as well as the thumbs down. That did it for me. Councilman Scarl, Chairman of the Environmental Control Committee, do you have a report this evening?
No report, Mr. President, but I'd like a moment of personal privilege.
Of course.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to wish Councilman Kelly good luck in his new endeavor. I'm sure we'll be speaking as you take your new office. And also, I'd like to wish everyone a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, and look forward to getting down to work in the new year with the council. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Gilchrist, Chairwoman of the Intergovernmental Relations Committee, do you have a report this evening?
I do not have a report, Mr. President. Thank you. But I would like to ask for a moment of personal privilege.
By all means.
I just wanted to congratulate Mr. Kelly again and wish him the best of luck with the county council, and look forward to working him in at a different level. And also, I wanted to wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year for the council and the community members at large in the community of North Homestead.
Thank you. Are there any letters or communications to come before council at this time?
No, Mr. President.
Thank you. We'll move into audience participation. Thank you for joining tonight's virtual council meeting. Public comments offer the opportunity for members of the public to share information and bring issues and concerns to the attention of city council members. For those of you wishing to speak tonight, please state and spell your name and address for the clerk. If you live in a city other than North Olmsted, please state the name of that city and proceed with your comments. You will have up to 5 minutes. We will first start with those who have notified us via the chat feature. And then once recognized by the clerk, please unmute your phone or computer and begin your comment. Clerk Taylor, has anyone notified you that they'd like to comment this evening?
No, Mr. President.
Thank you. If there was If there's anyone who has not notified us via the chat feature but would like to comment, please unmute your phone and address council now by stating your name and address. All right, hearing no comments from the audience, we will now move into legislation.
Legislation on third reading. Ordinance 2022-97 introduced by Mayor Jones, and ordinance amending the schedule of uses at 1139.03-1 of chapter 1139, quote, business districts, end quote, of the Planning and Zoning Code of the codified ordinances of the city of North Olmsted for the purpose of establishing massage establishments operated by the state licensed professional as a permitted use in the North Olmsted Business District.
Mr. President,
Councilman Lippert.
make a motion to adopt ordinance 2022-97 and ask for a second.
Second.
Motion to adopt ordinance 2022-97 is made by Councilman Lippert and seconded by Councilwoman Williamson. Roll call, please.
Mr. Lippert,
Yes.
Ms. Williamson,
Yes.
Mr. Glassburn,
Yes.
Ms. Gilchrist,
Yes.
Ms. Heeman,
Yes.
I'm sorry,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly. Thumbs up.
Pat, if we can just get a thumbs up or a thumbs down because we're not hearing you. Thank you.
And Mr. Scarl.
Yes.
Ordinance 2022-97 is adopted by a vote of 7-0.
Legislation on second reading, ordinance 2022-122, introduced by Mayor Jones, an ordinance to make appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures for the city of North Olmsted for the year ending December 31st, 2023, and declaring an emergency as amended.
Mr. President, I'd move to suspend the rule requiring 3 readings for 2022-122. This contains a number of public safety items, and ask for a second.
Second.
Motion to suspend the rule requiring 3 readings for ordinance 2022-122 made by Councilman Glassburn and seconded by Councilman Lippert. Roll call, please.
Mr. Glassburn,
Yes.
Mr. Lippert,
Yes.
Mr. Scarl,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly. Thumbs up. Ms. Heeman,
Yes.
Ms. Gilchrist,
Yes.
Ms. Williamson,
Yes.
That motion passes by a vote of 7-0. If there is anyone in the virtual audience who wishes to address council regarding ordinance 2022-122, please speak up now to be recognized.
Mr. President, seeing none and hearing none, I'd move to adopt 2022-122 and ask for a second.
Second.
Motion to adopt ordinance 2022-122 made by Councilman Glassburn, seconded by Councilman Lippert. Roll call, please.
Mr. Glassburn,
Yes.
Mr. Lippert,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly, Ms. Heeman,
Yes.
Ms. Gilchrist,
Yes.
Ms. Williamson,
Yes.
Mr. Scarl.
Yes.
Ordinance 2022-122 is adopted by a vote of 7-0.
Ordinance 2022-123, introduced by Mayor Jones, an ordinance to make and transfer appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures for the city of North Olmsted for the year ending December 31st, 2022, and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I move to suspend the rule requiring 3 readings for 2022-123. This is the final expenditures for this calendar year and ensures that we pay all our bills for public safety. And I ask for a second.
Second.
Motion to suspend the rule requiring 3 readings for ordinance 2022-123 is made by Councilman Glassburn and seconded by Councilman Limpert. Roll call, please.
Mr. Glassburn,
Yes.
Mr. Lippert,
Yes.
Ms. Williamson,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly, Mr. Scarl,
Yes.
Ms. Heeman,
Yes.
Ms. Gilchrist.
Yes.
That motion passes by a vote of 7-0. If there is anyone in the virtual audience who wishes to address council regarding ordinance 2022-123, please speak up now to be recognized.
Seeing and hearing none, Mr. President, I move to adopt 2022-123 and ask for a second.
Second.
Motion to adopt ordinance 2022-123 made by Councilman Glassburn, seconded by Councilman Limpert. Roll call, please.
Mr. Glassburn,
Yes.
Mr. Lippert,
Yes.
Mr. Scarl,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly, Ms. Heeman,
Yes.
Ms. Williamson,
Yes.
Ms. Gilchrist.
Yes.
Ordinance 2022-123 is adopted by a vote of 7-0.
Ordinance 2022-124, introduced by Mayor Jones, an ordinance amending and reestablishing Section 139.99 of Chapter 139 of the Administrative Code of the Codified Ordinances of the City of North Olmsted, entitled, quote, Department of Public Safety, end quote, in order to create the position of, quote, part-time master plans examiner, end quote, within the Division of Building. Legislation on first reading. Ordinance 2022-106, an ordinance amending Chapter 557 of the General Offenses Code of the City of North Olmsted, entitled, quote, Sale of Cigarettes and Tobacco Products, end quote, in order to update regulations for the sale to or possession of cigarettes, electronic cigarettes, or other tobacco or alternate nicotine products by individuals under 21 years of age and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, on behalf of Councilwoman Williamson, Councilwoman Gilchrist, and myself, I introduce and place on first reading.
Resolution 2022-125, a resolution authorizing the mayor to purchase for installation at the Recreation Center, Senior Center, and Springvale Ballroom security cameras and related monitoring equipment through the state purchase program from Southeast Security, and further authorizing the mayor to execute all contract documents and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I introduce, place on first reading, and request suspension of the rule requiring 3 readings and formal committee review.
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Heeman.
I'd like to make a motion to request suspension of the rules requiring 3 readings regarding 2022-125, as this has been something that has been pending since 2021, is in the best interest of all of our residents, and is a matter of public safety to our residents. And I'd like to ask for a second, please.
Second.
Motion to suspend the rules requiring 3 readings and formal committee review for resolution 2022-125 is made by Councilwoman Heeman and seconded by Councilman Scarl. Roll call, please.
Ms. Heeman,
Yes.
Mr. Scarl,
Yes.
Ms. Gilchrist,
Yes.
Ms. Williamson,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Lippert,
Yes.
Mr. Glassburn,
Yes.
That motion passes by a vote of 7-0. If there is anyone in the virtual audience who wishes to address council regarding Resolution 2022-125, please speak up now to be recognized.
Mr. President,
Councilwoman.
hearing no objections and seeing none, I'd like to make a motion to adopt 2022-125 and ask for a second.
Second.
Motion to adopt Resolution 2022-125 made by Councilwoman Heeman, seconded by Councilman Scarl. Roll call, please.
Ms. Heeman,
Yes.
Mr. Scarl,
Yes.
Mr. Limpert,
Yes.
Mr. Glassburn,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly, Ms. Gilchrist,
Yes.
Ms. Williamson.
Yes.
Resolution 2022-125 is adopted by a vote of 7-0.
Ordinance 2022-126, an ordinance to revise the codified ordinances by adopting current replacement pages and declaring an emergency.
I introduce and place on first reading on behalf of myself and all of council and request suspension of the rules requiring 3 readings and formal committee review, as this was discussed in caucus this evening, and is the adopting ordinance to update the code book to conform with current state law and those of the city of North Olmsted.
Mr. President, I move to suspend the rule requiring 3 readings and formal committee review for the reasons described and ask for a second.
Second.
Thank you. Motion to suspend the rules requiring 3 readings and formal committee review for ordinance 2022-126 is made by Councilman Glassburn and seconded by Councilman Lippert. Roll call, please.
Mr. Glassburn,
Yes.
Mr. Limpert,
Yes.
Mr. Scarl,
Yes.
Ms. Williamson,
Yes.
Ms. Gilchrist,
Yes.
Ms. Heeman,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly.
That motion passes by a vote of 7-0. If there is anyone in the virtual audience who wishes to address council regarding ordinance 2022-126, please speak up now to be recognized.
Seeing and hearing none, Mr. President, I'd move to adopt 2022-126 and ask for a second.
Second.
Motion to adopt ordinance 2022-126 made by Councilman Glassburn, seconded by Councilman Limpert. Roll call, please.
Mr. Glassburn,
Yes.
Mr. Limpert,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly, Ms. Gilchrist,
Yes.
Ms. Williamson,
Yes.
Mr. Scarl,
Yes.
Ms. Heeman.
Yes.
Ordinance 2022-126 is adopted by a vote of 7-0. So moving into scheduling committee meetings, starting with Tuesday, January 3rd, 2023. Councilwoman Williamson, would you like to schedule public safety, health, and welfare?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to schedule that meeting for 7:30 p.m. to address ordinance 2022-106. I would ask that the mayor or her designee be present, as well as our law director. Thank you.
Thank you. And then moving on to Tuesday, January 10th, 2023. Councilman Limpert, would you like to schedule BZD?
I would, Mr. President. Thank you. I'd like to schedule a building zone development meeting on January 10th at 7 o'clock to address application 22-23436 related to the City of North Olmsted sanitary storm project, and ask that the Economic Development Director and any other relevant parties be present.
Thank you. Before signing off, I just want to wish all of you a very Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, a great New Year. It's been great working with you this first year in my new role, and I appreciate the patience that you guys have exhibited when I've needed it. So you're a great group to work with, including the administration, and I thank you. So with the agenda being completed and there being no further business to come before council, this meeting of December 20th, 2022 is adjourned at 8:41 p.m.